Hi, everyone, and welcome to this informal discussion at the Unlock Your Design Embodiment call. Today we have Damaris with us. Damaris is an alchemist perfumer. She's focusing on integrating many selves by removing the opposition amongst body, heart, and mind and spirit, and balancing the many archetypes, roles, and needs for peak performance. And I know Damaris since a little while ago here in Florida, and we met in a hair salon, and she had me smell something that took me back to like many places of inside my own body and understanding how scents are connected to embodiments, which is, embodiment is exactly what I care about. Damaris is a 3-5 Sphinx. So a Sphinx like me, her life's work is Jinki 7. So she's a guide, and her purpose, I believe, or radiance is the second Jinki, which is also about orientation. And that's what I understood with the sense as a Taurus as well, how that can actually guide you and also guide you to the places where it is numbness, which is part of that. Also, what we can learn with the first Jinki where we're numb or where we have entropy. So that's kind of where I know you from, Damaris. But over time, I've also understood, in conversations with you, the approach to the soul feast, or I know that you go to like Torah study classes. So for me, you're kind of that seventh Jinki, the way I speak about it, the guide that's just orienting over like religions and so many different systems. And what you're saying here too, all the layers of the body, the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. So today I know that when we were speaking about the topic, we are going to speak about dam holding and why. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that, and if there's anything I forgot in kind of who you are and why you're here with us today, please.
No, Bella, thank you. You have done wonderful in explaining. As Bella was speaking of, I realize we are many people, all of us. We have not only the parts of the layers in this way, soul, body, emotions, everything, whether you want to break it up by chakras, however you go. We are many like in that way, the visible and the invisible, but also horizontally, we play many archetypes. We are the friend, the mother, the husband, the brother, the entrepreneur, the alchemist, the visionary, the worker. We are so many. And lots of times these are competing. And some are becoming too overly dominant. Of course, there are some that are dominant and they take certain precedence at different times. But sometimes we become a little bit unintegrated because we're having this fight in ourselves. And part of my work is why I use the sense, because sense, like Brayla was saying, bring you into the body. Things that people didn't know they could feel, that I craft the sense in a certain way. I craft sense, for example, to touch your heart, or I craft sense to take you to a certain place in your youth. I craft sense to let you speak your truth. So I know it's intentional. So it's not just a scent for the sake of the smell, right? So it's kind of aromatherapy meets perfumery. Because I studied perfume, I studied aromatherapy, then they have the spiritual evolutionary component of it. And that's how we come into what I was having a long, hard time. My friends were like, well, talk about this, talk about this. Like, I don't know what to talk about. So I talk about everything. Then I was like, oh, our many selves. Because one day I'm going to tell you about the spiritual, then I'm going to go straight into scent and explaining something, then something else. Because it's like Bella says, it's about that. I can't help it in a way, I guess is my own makeup in terms of guiding, teaching, because that's how I learn. If I don't do it, I don't advance. So it's like a mutual thing. I need that dance for my own evolution as well. And I think that's true for all of us. You have to use what you have in order for you to evolve. Otherwise, it's like, so I chose the topic dam holding because it has to do with sensations in the body that oftentimes we ignore. And in talking to Bella, she's always, when we're in discussion, she's like, okay, you have to feel in the body because there is this feedback between body and mind. It's always, and soul and spirit. There's the body influence them, they influence back, okay? So a lot of times, like for me, I was out of my body for a long time. My body was somewhere else. So I was one of these people like, welcome to planet Earth, So sense help you come into the body, but then sense have this ethereal aspect that help you also go in the other direction, which we need to be like the green Tara, like this, right? One up, one down. So the dam holding, a lot of times we have resistance. It's in the body. And if we are aware and attuned to what each one of us, our bodies do when we are resistant, then it helps us quicker identify when we are resistant, because we're not always aware. We're now speaking and we're inspired, but in the movement of life, running here, picking up, making your errands, getting your hair done, shaving, whatever, you forget a lot of these things. So if you're in tune with the emotions, the feelings in the body, then it also helps reminds you of what may be going on with you in different aspects of yourself. So I'm gonna ask you right now, before I read you this, to imagine a dam. You know how dams hold water and have rivers or water bodies deviate or go in the course that whichever that man wanted it to go. There's a big problem worldwide now with a lot of the old dams, because some are breaking. Some have, the walls are so strong, but they have found ways to go under the ground, to dig holes under the ground to get out. So we're aware that dam is a resistance, but it's a resistance that require constant pressure and strength, because it can break at any time. So I was going through actually, I don't mention it in here, but it was actually separation, divorce. And I had people saying, oh, you should do this, you should do that to stop things. And I said, and then I wrote this and shared it with some friends. And I said, listen, dam holding, why? When God made the rivers to flow. And God could be anything, the universe, it doesn't matter. For me, it's a general word. Resisting is hard work. So be wise when you're resisting to make sure your rewards are of great value. A friend asked me once, why did I not use certain tactics to maintain an uncongenial relationship? I responded, do I look like a dam that I would be bold enough to try to hold back the waters of the river and divert their course? No, I would not be able to take a moment's rest without risking being swallowed up and washed away by the rolling waters. And these waters are not being spiteful, but their nature is to force their way through. Can you imagine holding up a wall, let alone a dam, to prevent people and events from taking their course? Think of all the things you're resisting. Make an inventory. Changes to relationships, life condition, habits, your own idiosyncrasies, the idiosyncrasy of others, so on and so forth. Then determine if it's worth resisting. I'm not saying there's resistance is not necessary. I'm saying you determine each person when resistance is necessary. And if it's necessary, resist. And if it's not, move out the way, because sooner or later that water is gonna swallow you up. So now let's talk about now in a practical sense. Like when I noticed that many of my clients, when they're resistant, the feeling is in the solar plexus or in the stomach. For me, certainly is there. I feel like my stomach is like, it's not really a knot. It's just this it could be two, depending on what I'm going through. One could be a tightness, like an obstruction, and the other one could be a hollowness, like something is empty. So for each one of you, you don't have to speak in the group, or you could think about it. Like in your case, when you can think back of times when there was a situation you were trying to fight to make it go in a certain direction or resistant, where in your body, if you remember, were you feeling any kind of sensation? Some people even feel it in the neck and shoulders, right? Kilo, you smiling. Where were you feeling?
Oh, I get it in the neck and the shoulders.
Neck and shoulders. Some people feel it, neck and shoulders, right in this area of the neck.
Right here, the right and my right, my lower back above the hip. Those are my two fun spots.
And what have you done in that? Did you know it? In other words, if this happens again, are you recognizing those things creeping on? Because normally they start creeping before sometimes we're aware of the resistance at a mental or emotional level.
It depends what I'm open to learn at that time. I can't say every single time, I think I'm aware of it, but I also sometimes like to take it a little bit further and just like really feel the resistances, because like it's a part of being human, and I really have compassion for those moments in my life too. So say it's about 50-50.
Okay. Yeah, there's no wrong or right answer. It's one's own, it depends on you and where you are in that moment. There are moments that I'm like, I don't dig my, and there are moments when I said, you know what, hold on. And you just move to the side, let the river flow. So it's not a right or wrong, it's more about awareness. Awareness so that you can determine, once you're feeling it, you can determine how far, like you say, you want to go with that. Do you want to go to the point where you're crook neck and go to the chiropractor? That's valid as well. But what I'm saying is you're able to make your own decision because you're aware of where in your body the resistance is being felt. Paula, I see this glow in your eyes. What?
Well, I for certain feel it in what I think they traditionally call your solar plexus, directly, almost like a shallowness in my breathing when I'm tensed up against, or even mentally against something. I feel it there.
And what is your tendency? That's just you, if you want to share. Like,
well, now
when
that
you
I'm
feel it.
Yeah, well, now that I'm aware that I hold sort of restriction, or that I resist something, I try to be more objective, and I try to release that and breathe better, but deeper, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense because, like you're saying, when you're doing that, you're literally holding the breath, right?
Mm.
So by you realizing that and starting, because sometimes if you're unconscious, you're just holding your breath. You're not even realizing that you're holding the breath. You have no consciousness of doing that.
Mm.
Nicole, you want to comment on anything?
Sorry, I'm just sitting next to my husband who's starting his workday, so I just had to check. I'm a mix of both Paula and Kilo. I get like a wave from the, what do you call it, the brainstem, top of my head, down on my neck, over my shoulders, wraps around over the diaphragm and into the solar plexus. So it ends up being my whole torso locks. And I also have the not breathing thing that goes on, which is not a surprise, I'm sure, to particularly Bella. That my breathing just freezes completely, and it's actually been a lifelong thing for me, and it's a really big job of work to have an awareness of my body. So this is absolutely perfect timing for me, Damaris. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. So I just wanted to give this brief introduction. And like when I do the perfume sessions and I give people a strip to smell, one of the things I like to always say, there's no wrong or right answer, because you have to feel deeply in order to think clearly. So you don't need to edit yourself in what you're feeling. There's no right or wrong answer. If you feel in your neck, if somebody said they felt it in their toe, well, that's where they felt it. You know, there's no right or wrong answer. It's being aware of all these things, because awareness is already part of the change if we wish to. It's totally up to each person, but at least you're aware, and then you can take whatever steps or measures that you wish to take. And then working with Bella and your gene keys, then you're able to see how all that ties in, and that embodiment part. Because I talked about resistance, and I'm going to leave this as a thought, not for necessarily to discuss unless you think about when is the opposite. Where do you feel it in the body when you're going with the flow? When you're feeling fully in rhythm? Where in the body are you feeling it most? So this is something for you to contemplate. It's like for each, if you wish to share, you could say that as well. But Kilo is, you wish to tell us where you feel it, Kilo? Okay, you don't have to. It's just to be aware of both, because it's not only about what's going wrong, when it's going right. How am I feeling? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to give this brief introduction, and I'll turn it over to Bella to continue.
Oh, we have one more person coming in who usually is here. Well, I can just, as Johanna is coming in, I realized that in my case, when the feeling or the discomfort of something on the outside, when it's something on the outside, I feel it in the solar plexus a lot. And similar to what you were saying, Damaris, kind of that hollowness, and what you were saying, Paula, the solar plexus. And it's kind of like overwhelming feeling of like, I have to deal with something that I don't want to deal with. And then I realized there's also this other sense when it's more kind of a responsibility on me to do something, that there can be a little bit more like what you're saying, Kilo, like a weight or even like a something here. So I definitely know, it's very, very visceral for me. And yeah, with others, it's kind of here. It has to do with nervousness. And if it's more of like a responsibility and something that I kind of like, I don't want to look at, it's more kind of chest for me. And I think that when I feel really good, it's more like in the kind of in the juiciness and the base of the body. Like that's how I feel the aliveness. Yeah.
That's what you couldn't say, Kilo? Okay, Bella said it for us. Thank you.
Yeah, and Joe, I see you're not on camera, but we are exploring embodiment, I guess. But Damaris is working with scents a lot to make us come back to the body. But right now we are exploring awareness of just what's happening in the body as we are feeling either something uncomfortable or something comfortable. And yeah, I mean, Damaris, lead us, continue to, like, if you want to continue the exploration, or where do you want to go from here?
Well, we can continue going deeper into the exploration of the body. One of the things that can do a lot to bring us into the body, but it always keeps that ethereal part of this soul spirit connection, is essential oils or scents in general, because essential scents come from essential oils. I'm talking about the natural ones, obviously. So one of the good things is to how we associate scents to events. I'm going to give you an example. When we do the scent and sensibility, we call it scent party, where people would smell a particular scent and then say like what it evokes. It could be a memory, it could be a color, sensation in their bodies, etc. So when we do that, I never like for people to know what the scent is. So I don't know if you have anything around you could smell, but never want people to know up for, because we have associations mentally. If you knew it was lavender, then you may say you feel calm. Lavender may not make you calm because your association to it may not be one of calm. But if you know it's lavender, you may say, oh yeah, I feel calm. So we want to eliminate the mind when we are trying to explore scents. And you can do this on your own. Like put a couple scents in like a little bag or cup, close your eyes and then pick a different one. And just go into the scent. Don't try to determine what the scent is, just go into what do you feel. And it could be anything, could be a memory. And people get like, no, it can't be this. So for example, one guy said, no, it can't be. I said, but what is it you remember? He said, this reminds me of my grandmother. I said, okay, so what about your grandmother? So when I would go to her house, I said, where were you in the house? In the yard. I would just lay in her yard. I said, where was this? Outside her kitchen. I said, And then he said, but this makes me feel really cozy. I said, well, what was your grandmother doing? Baking cookies. Well, the scent I had given him is vanilla. So you see how he associated vanilla with comfort, laying in his grandmother's yard, but what was happening, his grandmother was baking cookies. So the most likely vanilla in those cookies. So the association with scent is good to help us dig deeper, because just consciously, we would not relate the scent to me in my grandmother's yard laying down. We wouldn't go that far. We would just, if we had vanilla by itself, we wouldn't do all that most of the time. Some of us would, but for the generally not. And then for most complex scents, then it starts bringing up, for one person, for example, they smell hay. One person would say, and it's fun to see in groups how we see the world differently. One person would say, this is Viagra in a bottle. Oh my God. And this another person would say, this is the most disgusting, horrible stench I have ever seen. How can the same scent? Because that's exactly how the world is. But let me tell you something more about scents. Scents are like people. They also have many different parts. For example, a rose is made up of things from clove. It has eugenol. And rose has parts of lime. And rose have parts of geranium. So when you, just like people, we may present one thing, but we have other aspects in it. And depending on our focus, that's what we see. So one person, you give them a rose, you don't say it's a rose, they will smell the clove. They say, this reminds me like of clove. And everybody, but no, it's a rose. Yeah, rose has eugenol, which is clove essence underneath. But one person will identify with that. The other person will identify more with the lemony part of the rose, another part with the more rosy part of the rose. And roses have parts of it that don't smell as good, but that put together is a lovely rose. And that's the same thing with the way we are. So we have parts that are beautiful and parts that are not so, but that's the whole thing is what makes us who we are. That's what brings our beauty, both our stink and our sweet parts, if you want to put it like that. Everything together makes us what we are. So that's when I talk about integration is now you are able to start smell something and say, okay, I smell the rose. Oh, also I smell the vanilla. So you don't become so like, we all have our own lenses on, obviously, but it helps you expand more your lens so that when you smell, you can smell the different parts in layers, just as you do with people. You meet a person, they're one way, and then as you go, there are the different layers. And not to think because a person has one thing that is stink, that doesn't make the whole thing, it's still a rose. It has parts of it that makes it a rose that are maybe not smelling so nicely, but it's still a rose. So that is also an important part in when we think about scent. So you could take any scent, and I prefer for something natural, if you have essential oils, or if you have a cinnamon, I don't care, apple, mango, a flower. You want to smell it, and then you just want to be still. And you just want to let it travel. And people say it's in my nose. Obviously, it's in your nose at first, but trust me, it travels. And it goes to different parts of your body. Yeah, exactly. You grab whatever you have, a mango, I don't care, dirt, doesn't matter. Paper, pencil. Pencil always reminded me of kindergarten. How was that, Nicole?
The timing is hilarious. I'm actually looking at, these are shavings of my art pencils at the moment.
And what does that bring to mind when you smell them, Nicole?
Today, immediately, my somatic session I had yesterday that was about my resistance to doing art.
Okay, so let's go with you on the pencil.
It was clearing a lot of things yesterday in my somatic session about this, because I've been very resistant to touching these things. So smelling this is bringing that up. And then underneath that is bringing up the memory that I do actually love this smell. So there's a multi-layered thing going on for me.
So as a child, did you do how were you on pencils?
Well, that was the interesting thing that came up yesterday. Apparently I loved doing it, but somewhere along the line I got told it was not allowed. And it was, so there was no time for fun or play. So what I was working through yesterday was clearing the shame around loving and accepting that I love playing with pencils and art and drawing and coloring in. So, yeah. So, and I think it's hilarious that today's talk, this is actually the first thing I've picked up.
Pencil always brings me this kindergarten smell.
Yeah. So yeah,
Awesome.
So it's a good smell, but yeah, it's just funny, the timing of it is perfect because it's clear.
As you smell it, try to see where in your body, and calm and try to find the memories as well tied to the pencil. Paula, what were you smelling?
I have a chrysanthemum here. It's on its way out, but I always try. But it doesn't have a very strong smell, but I can smell almost like it brings up, like you were saying, a color to me, like green. It brings the color green to my mind, and grass, and yeah.
And what does green and grass make you feel?
Oh, it's nature is my favorite place to be. So it reminds me think of spring, which we could use some of here. But but yes,
Okay.
being outside.
Did you notice the look on her face when she spoke about green, when she spoke about green and grass? Did you see the delight in her face? Yeah. And then I'm gonna, Kilo, you wanna say something? He's always looking like he's dying to say something, but holding it. He's like, yes, but there's no wrong or right answer.
I was surprised by the response by what I was smelling. The first one, the other two, I'm like, okay, I could anticipate them kind of, but the first one, I just had this uncontrollable laughter. I'm like, no, this can't be. So I did it again, and it just kept going. Every time that I would smell it, I just like wanted to burst out in laughter, and I couldn't stop. So.
Which one was that?
Lavender.
Oh, see that? Is there any memory associated with it? Just, or anything came to your mind, or color? Laughter is good. I just want to know if there was anything.
Just laughter. It felt like existential laughter.
Wow. Wow. Joe?
Hi.
Hi.
I am sitting in a church storage, so to.
Oh my God, one of my favorite scents.
So I actually opened up my hair and I smelled. I don't have any other things around me except for me. So I actually smelled my skin and my hair smells like jasmine. There's a special kind of Indian jasmine. It's not like a it's a double petaled white and green, but it's not a single jasmine that you normally get here. It's like a bud, like very thick and very nice smell. And it took me back. So it reminds me of my youth, like the young, like it's the youthful woman smell. That's what I felt like, and it's in my sacral that I that I sensed that, and it went back to my I wouldn't say childhood, but like in teenage time. And during summers in India, you get these garlands of jasmine flowers. My uncle used to bring like 2 to 3, what did these call, like 1 yard. Because I had lots of hair, and so I smelled my hair, like it took me back into that time where yeah, just a youthful teenager smell.
Bella, have you been smelling anything? Anything you wanna?
Did you say me?
Yeah, just wondering.
Yeah, I was just also, Joe, this is the first Tuesday we're not meeting. So usually we have a call before this that we call Whole. And that call was a journey where we're looking at the feminine and masculine and kind of the sacred union of all the parts, like very similar to what we were introducing in the beginning, Damaris. And for me, I felt that in some way, Joe, when I saw you in that journey, you became more and more mature. But at the same time as you became more and more mature, you were reclaiming more and more of your youth and the true youth. So somehow that you're coming here as we were closing the container last week, and you're like smelling your hair and the beauty, and you coming to these calls as well, and just infusing and bringing so much beauty and naturalness and femininity. It's like it's beautiful to feel you in that energy and to get a taste and a smell of that as well. So thank you. Yeah, and for me, I was smelling my vanilla. I mean, it wasn't a vanilla smoothie, but it had protein that was vanilla, and it was strawberries. And it's one of those smells I realized where I can't get too much of it because I'm sensitive to smell, and it's very easy that's too much. But I think vanilla, at least like the more natural, vanilla, I don't feel overwhelmed. And it actually feels like it kind of merges with me. So as I was smelling, like you were saying, it was traveling down and like to my stomach, to my belly, and I could feel this thing of like not feeling overwhelmed, not feeling like something foreign is like taking up my awareness, but really just I can take more, I can take more. So there is something with vanilla and strawberry that just kind of really merges with me and makes me feel safe and just happy. And I think it actually goes back to childhood too. You know, the forest, there's not strawberry, I don't know what they call it, but like it's mini strawberries that are wild in the forest, and we have them in Sweden. So when you're a child, you go in the forest, there are blueberries, but there's also these, like, we call them smultron, and they are tiny little strawberries that taste so good. And that's what I also remembered.
So now we can see how, like, with more complex sense and with different sense, how we can start becoming more aware of the body. Smell something, because normally we just smell and okay, I smell. For example, when I use my nose when I go to a new restaurant. If I walk into a restaurant, if you do that, you will know if you want to eat there or not. Because to me, some restaurants, I pick up a scent that I'm like, I don't want to say it, but something smelled to me like bugs. Maybe that's not bug. Maybe that's my idea of bug, okay? Because I didn't actually grab the bug and inspect it. So maybe it's my idea of bug. Or I smell like too much disinfectant or too much. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to eat here. So this sense of smell is to help us go into the body. But then there's another aspect of scent. We always think of scent in terms of taking us back. But do you know a scent can take you forward as well? Like, for example, we're all working in different aspects of ourselves and overcoming certain obstacles, removing certain pain, the different things we're doing. Scents can also be used to take you to where you want to go. So, for example, I had a client that said to me, Damaris, I want a scent that is like the beautiful, powerful, highly feminine woman. I said, okay. So I'm working with the client. I give her everything that is feminine. She doesn't know what I'm giving her to smell, but I'm giving her first feminine scents individually before we compose a fragrance. She hated every feminine scent. So I realized, yes, it's her ideal. She wants to go there, but it's part of, she's not there. That's something that's where she wants to go, and which is fine. We have aspiration to go places, but sometimes we're not there. So in that case, we can use the scent. Obviously, I can't give her a highly feminine scent. She would be repulsed by it. And that's where now we layer stuff. So I'll put something more citrusy, okay? But under, then I'll put all the feminine scents that I need to help her in coming into that which she's saying that she wants. So there was another example like this where this lady was having problems with her partner at a business. And she said, Damaris, I need to feel more courageous. I don't know how to speak and say like my truth. I just won't do it. And I said, okay. So I made her something like that. So she comes back like 2 days later. She said, Damaris, this thing makes me feel too bold. I said, but you said you wanted to feel bold. No, but I'm scared of feeling bold. I said, okay, just wear a little less, so that it helps you go to where you want to go. Because I said, you want to be bold, you want to stop wearing it? She says, no. I said, then just put a little less. So it's not pushing you as fast. Then you control how fast you want to move. So scents also are a tool to take you not only back, but take you into a certain archetype or a certain behavior or a certain aspect of yourself that you want to work with. This, what we're talking about, is awareness. So you'll be aware of your repulsions. Your repulsions also tell you something about yourself. My repulsions tell, like, I can stand citronella. Your repulsion tells you something of a connected memory or some aspect of yourself that's not integrated, or just something you just, like, because of association, you just totally dislike. And like I said, there's no judgment or wrong answer. It's just awareness. Once you have the knowledge, you decide how you want to use this knowledge. There's no right way to feel. So there's no censorship. No, it's not like that. These are awareness tools, and we can use it for awareness, but also for embodiment. So it's both. So that's where the alchemist part comes in the type of perfumes that we were discussing. Because Bella have seen some of the things we have, done with scents in that way, how they can be so visceral. I've had people just start crying in these perfume parties because it goes so deep and into emotions that were suppressed for so long. But then some people will be euphoric, just laughing, just. So it does all kinds of stuff. And all of these are just tools that complement the work we are doing already, where you're already on this path to embody, to understand, to be aware, so that you can use the proper tools to go where you want to go, be who you want to be. So the important thing that I'd like you to remember about the sense that there's no good, right or wrong answer. There's no wrong or right way of feeling. It's just you must feel deeply to think clearly.
Thank you. I have something to kind of go a little bit out or deeper. So you are saying, awareness, yes. And I remember one time how it also can show us our behavior. So that was one of those scents that we were writing about in the chat that was like repugnant or repulsive. And the person was smelling it and it's like, oh, you could see the whole body and nervous system, everything. And then then you took it back. And then it's like, oh, let me smell it again. Let me smell it again. And it's like, and it was like going, and then you're like, okay, do you see your behavior here? Like it's repugnant, and at the same time, you can't stop it. So there is behavior here. And like, where does that behavior translate in your life? And me knowing that person, I can say, yeah, like that's not something I think about the first thing when I think about the person, but now that I saw that behavior reaction, I can see that that's something translating to a much bigger thing in this person's life. And from that, we were also saying, okay, a way of working with this could be, and you were speaking about how, and then you told me something else, which I think my Scorpio nature had to also kind of look at in layers. Like when you take people to those places and work with some of the behaviors, which you can do with scents, you don't want to just throw them down into the abyss with the repugnance of everything. You said you want to bring people down and also give them something that can take them up. And I think that sometimes my way of working is that I trust the depth and the abyss and the darkness so much. So I don't necessarily, use something to take them up with. So those two things are two different ways we could go and explore together a little bit, like how can we work with it so that we can transform things and transcend things, and also the behaviors that can be shown and worked with through how we are behaving with the sense.
Yes, that's a very good. So yeah, in the type of psychology, as I think about it, is I'm going to give you this example. Let me give you a picture. A picture is always 1,000 words. There was this guy when I was a child that he had been shot in the back and he was told he'll never walk. But he went ahead and developed the upper body of maybe Samson. He had this powerful upper body. And with that upper body, he wasn't walking. He called it walking. No. He was that powerful that he could literally use crutches and drag the rest of his body because he didn't want to be in a wheelchair. He fell out umpteen times out the wheelchair. So I'm using an extreme example. Eventually, he did walk with a cane, even though they said he would never walk with that bullet. But he had to use what was strong in order to bring up what was weak. So the way I'm saying it, working, I look at a person's strength and say, okay, you remember he was doing with the same. Okay, where's the strength? Okay, the strength is here. Let's help the strength be a little stronger. And then we have that strength help bring up that weak point. So we don't have that tendency because the way we learn in psychology, in school, psychotherapy, everything is go and see what's in the dark. But if I put you in a dark room, what you need is a lamp or a candle. But if I say walk around the dark room and find the switch, only God when you're going to find it. Depends. What if it's on the roof and it's one of these pull lights and not the ones on the wall? You may be going around. Remember those houses got the light up here? You may be assuming it's here. So it's very important that whatever we have as gift, we make it as, Bella has told me a lot of things. And part of me coming out doing a lot of things has to do with Bella because she said, Damaris, your strength is this, your guidance is this. And I'm like, okay, the only way I'm going to strengthen, deal with my weakness if I strengthen my strength, you see? Because if I just leave my weakness, if he had just worked on his legs, try to strengthen his leg, pat his leg, and don't do anything with his upper body would have become weaker, and his legs would not have had the power of the upper body to bring them up, right? So a lot of the things that Bella helped me with is pointing out the things that I had that were strengths. And then, as you may have it, the universe, whatever, had situations where it kept demanding of me to use those strengths. That some of the things I've kind of like, no, let me just, but if I don't use my strengths, it would be very difficult to work with my weaknesses. So as we work, it's not like an either or, but as we work with the weakness, we must make sure we do not ignore, abandon. We must do everything. If you paint, paint. If you, whatever is a thing that you are gifted with, you must use, because that is what's going to help you with whatever else you're weak with, right? So in the sense, the same thing. When when Bella was talking to Soka Bella, we're crafting a scent for this person in this way. I know which things give this person, somebody we already worked with, strength. So I am going to put the other part that gives him the repulsion in it, but more of the one that gave him strength. So to help him confront the weak one, I want to strengthen his strong part. So his scent will be, that one will definitely be in there, but small, and more of everything that brings him light and power and wisdom. That's what's going to be the majority, to help him confront that one, rather than just saying, okay, go in there and fetch. Now, it's not, let me just say, it's not absolute either. I have met people who are very like powerful. For example, if I was doing Bella, I would just give her the strength directly, because I think she can handle it. Okay, so I'm not saying there are not circumstances where I think the person's like, he can handle it. I won't give him the full strength. Well, drop it. There are people I would literally throw in the ocean. You can swim. I'm gonna wait right here. There are people who would do that, but you have to make that. So I'm not making, it's not etched in stone that it's always that way. There are people you can throw in the ocean, they'll swim. But you have to assess that if some people you throw in the ocean, you're gonna have to get them out. They're gonna be traumatized. It's gonna be a longer time before they jump in again, because it's gonna be too much for them, right? So it's still circumstance, conditions, depend on the person, depend on the pain or the anguish or whatever that blockage is. But sometimes I believe you can drop them in the air, they'll fly too. So it just depends, And Bella has done some of that with me, because she's in a sort of like Damaris, and I'll be like, okay, I got it. Let me go in that. But it's not always that, you have to assess. So.
Joe, did you want to come in with something?
I was gonna, in the last two reflections of what you were saying, Bella and Damaris, one of the things I do is I make my own massage oil, and I'm not a massage therapist or whatever. I don't have a title of doing any of these, but I do use my hands to help out friends and people that I support sound healing and all of that with. And so I've been inspired to use lavender, frankincense, and orange as a combination. And as I work through using my hands, Damaris, you brought up alchemy. So it starts off with one of those notes very strong on their skin. Like you can smell. And then as they release the trauma and the toxins, the smell changes. And they are releasing within their body, but like the skin actually brings it up. And my intuition then is like, okay, so either like, do I put my energy to move that energy, or take their strength and move their strength through moving that blockage in wherever I'm seeing it, right? So like both of you like are teaching me in like teaching me reflection. Alchemy works in so many ways, and sense and moving with the energy has a scent. And that's what I suppose I was trying to say all through. Like I can see the aura and smell the aura I can smell the toxins in somebody's body. And when I get into that zone, it's not like, oh, I'm trying to spot it, or with permission, of course. So yeah, reminding me of that.
Well, I want to tell you one thing, that your combination is actually sound combination, because when you make a combination, you want to make sure you address the head, the middle, and the feet. And in your combination, you did that because orange is the head, this part, and then lavender is middle, and then frankincense is feet. So when you combine, there must be all. I rarely would use one scent because something may be off. Rarely, there's always exceptions. But when you're doing like this, like you're doing, because you have addressed like each layer, right? So as it's releasing, if they're letting go too much of it, they're not left ungrounded. And you need the middle, because as you're doing work, if it's in your head, you need your heart to be a little steady, you know? So that's actually a pretty decent combination for your work. And as far as the alchemy part, I do that sort of work as well. Like, you know, you touching the person, I'm very tactile and feeling. And you're right, the scent will change on people. And again, it's the same thing. There are times, again, I like to give stories. If you have somebody, today actually, I had somebody going in to an actual full crisis. I know if I let her go into crisis, she could end up in the other side. So do I intervene? Do I let her? It just depends. This is not the time to let her. This is the time for me to intervene and do something. But if it's a place where somebody can do it, then let them do it. But if you see they cannot and they need a push, and sometimes it's not a push, sometimes you literally have to grab the person. So as an alchemist, you have to discern what is appropriate when. There are times somebody gonna jump over a bridge. Is that the time to say, no, you gotta literally, okay, I gotta grab you. And there are times when I have to be hands off and say, no, you're gonna handle that. And there are times I just need to give you just need to blow you like this to the other side. But it's always important, what I found out about this work, people who are like, I don't know all of you, but I know like Bella, for example, and I'm telling you, Joe, there's different aspects in the spiritual sense of the alchemist, different paths. Some of us spread out. That's why we can read people. That's why we can go into the depths of them and help them, because we go this way. And that's a gift, but it has another part. Just like how we send out our soldiers, you have to always bring them back. If not, you become yourself disperse, and you become your many selves. Some of your selves are left somewhere else. So it's also important that as you do your work, when you're finished, like even the session, whatever you're doing, you bring back all your field soldiers that you send out into people to understand, to support them, to read into them, to help them, that you bring all this back to yourself. And only consciously, you would leave a little soldier with someone to do some work, but they can't be left by accident. You must pull them back. And that applies to all of us, because all of us in some way or another do our own alchemy with our husbands, wives, children, dog, whatever, work. You must learn to go in and help people do what you have to do. And then you must learn to withdraw your energy back to yourself and not leave yourself hanging out there. But it's not conscious. I used to feel tired after doing work with some people. When I say exhausted, I would work with some people I need to lay down for like a month. But I was sending out but I didn't understand about bringing it back. So parts of me were all over the place. Okay. So that's also an important aspect of all this for all of us, whether you're doing it consciously or an alchemist or whatever it is.
Yeah, what all this makes me think of in terms of alchemy or shamanic work or priestess work or whatever you want to call it, for me, both what you say at the end, Damaris, bringing back our energy and, you know, working on others. For me, the intention is that each and every one is filled of themselves. So even the work I can do with moving energy, it is to awaken the numb parts or the blockages, so they can move out of the way so that the person's own life force can move through. That's really my only intention somehow. And that's also why I just feel myself like being an instrument for that movement. And somehow I'm not interfering. I'm just in a way feeling into that movement of the body. And that can be working just in the aura. There can be working on the body, or that can even be the sexual alchemy that can happen when you have that kind of understanding or intimacy with somebody else, where you can go in and work with like kundalini more hands-on. And still, it's really that I feel like a conduit much more than somebody who's like, you know, interfering in any way. And like you say too, Damaris, like we are not there to force it. If it's ready, then, you know, the little we can open, that's what's that one needs to move that time. And I think that's been also a liberation for me, because I've done breath work trainings and like so many different methods that you can do, where like I really like a massage method is actually called Alchemy of Touch, which is it's a tantric principle, but it's not tantric in its way of being, but it's really how you are using even the weight, the gravity of your body to just actually create that, not force of friction into the muscles, but just leaning into it. And again, afterwards, you don't really feel like you gave a session. You feel like you were working together with the energy. And that takes away, like, I am here to work on you. No, we are here to follow the energy that wants to move. And today we're tuning into your vessel. And maybe next time, if I trust you, depending on the relationship, we can tune into my vessel. And then when you go away, that's what I always say with being virgin or being priestess. You know, you're not stained, you're not tainted, you don't keep that energy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very, very well said, Bella. That's exactly it. Not interfering and not keeping that energy.
And you know,
not
when I'm
leaving
thinking,
yours.
Damaris, about that, I actually get also what you said, because I can see that some energies are asking for some things, and you know, some other, like you say, do you focus on like uplifting the strength, or do you focus on going to the places where maybe the person doesn't go on their own? Like that's definitely case to case. So I can see why we're saying like somebody will actually, the experience of being thrown into where you haven't been, the wolves or the darkness or the unknown or the void, whatever that is part of like what that vessel is ready for. And sometimes it's the upliftment of feeling. When I have support for my life force to move, I am embodying something that I know I'm, you know, on my way to embodying, and I get support in that. So I definitely see more, even with a sense, that's your medium. And now I understand doing that with your medium in a similar way that I would have understood with just the life force moving.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're soon going to wrap up. We have like 5-10 minutes max. Is there anything, Damaris, you want to like wrap up with, or anything you want to ask somebody who's on the call? Anybody here that wants to say something before we close? Like, what's the closure of our little container today? Yeah, Nicole.
Just a quick question to Damaris about what happens when you have what most people would consider random sense drop into your world. So say you're in a place that, a good example, I have two that happen all the time. I could be in the middle of a shopping center and I'll get an overwhelming scent of rose, or an overwhelming scent of, say, cigarette smoke, or something that is completely not physically possible in the world where you're physically at. Do you have a take on what that, because I always see it as guides or memories, but I was just curious what your take is when, because it's something that I have quite regularly, and that's just two examples of many, but just out of curiosity.
Well, I have had that experience, and my take on it, and I'm not saying this is the authority in it, but we don't really, I think that sense travel just like thoughts. I've had that experience, and I've had people have that experience of me. They have been in a place, I said, Damaris, I smell you, but because I have a lot of scents around me, so there's a particular scent that is around my house, my belongings, everything, right? They were like, I smell you, but I know you're not here. It's not possible that scent, I'm in another country. I have also smelled people that were, it's impossible and it could be people or a particular scent. I was in this place watching a Sufi dance, the whirling dervishes. And it was so like breathtaking. And there were scents that I know there is impossible that they were in that place, right? And they brought back certain scenes. So I think just like how we have thoughts that you don't have to be in the same place to have a thought travel. They like they say in quantum physics, that thoughts have what they call non-locality. So it's not location based, right? Thoughts are not. I insist that scents are not location based as well. They're not. Still, they don't understand the mystery how we do smell. But that is one thing that I've experienced several times, and there's no, it's not based on location. There's no location to scent. So you could smell literally something that's nowhere. What I would like you to notice is, for example, rose, because you mentioned rose. In the spiritual world, smelling rose has to do with certain spiritual attunement, right? That's what they say in some of the mystical things, that smelling roses has to do with certain spiritual attunement. So if you can go back and think of the times that you were smelling rose, like what was going on in your life, or you were smelling cigarette, like try to go back of what that reminded you of, what was going on for you. But that's my take, and I've had that experience several times.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else would like to ask something? Anything, it could be anything about scent. You want to know about your perfume, you want to know what scent is, but anything, it doesn't matter, or anything else for that matter.
Well, maybe just one thing, remember synthetic scents, and how when I started to work with True Body Intelligence, I wasn't allowed to even have a perfume in my where I was washing my clothes, and he was saying that it was closing off part of my wear.
Absolutely, it is totally true.
So would you say something about that, and if it's different,
okay,
synthetic and natural?
Yes. Synthetics, first of all, you must, I want you to know that the scent industry is self-regulated, okay? They make up odor molecules. There is no any real research, anything to know what these different odor molecules can do to you. And realize that scent is not just perfume. Almost, if you buy a new car, it's scented. That leather is the scent. Otherwise, your leather wouldn't smell like this off the cow, okay? That's a leather scent. And you have scents in everything, because all these different materials we use have their own scent. So things are scented. It's your clothes, it's materials, shoes, everything has, somebody's possessed. They're knocking my door, but that's okay, ignore that. So scents are like everywhere, right? Synthetic scents, actually, when I was in studying scents in grass, the teacher, she said this, that they know that scents alter your DNA, synthetic scents. They know it alter your DNA, and not always in the best way. And there was a day that we smelled only synthetics. We were designing some different. And that makes, when people went home, people had all kind of hallucinations, but not good hallucinations. People had all these wicked, demonic, horrible type. People came back the next day like, oh my God. But when we did natural scents, yes, you go into these vivid dreams and stuff, but they're beautiful, they're pleasant. They're not that type. So scents do alter your DNA. Synthetic scents do alter your DNA. And you must realize scent is not just scent, because if you can breathe in an illness, whether it's COVID or a bacteria or tuberculosis or gas, you can, or even synthetic, you can breathe in a remedy. Okay, so natural scents will also, I believe, alter your DNA, but in a different way, in a positive way. Because I'm going to give you just one example to what you said. Gina, we have a friend that had this little dog. The dog was a little Xantippe, biting and snapping at people, and but she was just nervous. She was a traumatized dog. But the dog was just, and she's like, okay, make something. So I made something called Fancy Dog Spray. The dog used it for about a month. That dog never returned to be a little demon anymore. So scents consistently applied are also doing something, because our DNA is always interacting with the world, including emotions and things in our environment. Bella said something I really like that I use all the time. She called it karma by association. Okay, so that karma means that particular thing from you being in a particular environment around particular people becomes part of your DNA. Your DNA is always sending out signals and receiving signals. Scents are a very powerful way to influence your DNA in a certain direction, and that applies to synthetic scents and natural scents. So many of the perfumes today, like for example, if you buy Chanel, real Chanel, like #5 perfume, it's gonna have a great percent of natural scents along with the synthetic. But when you buy the cologne and the #5 everybody's spraying on, it has a lot of synthetics. And if you were to smell some of these synthetics on their own, you will find yourself like, there's even a story in the Perfumer. There was this famous perfumer no, he wasn't a perfumer. He worked for the perfume place and he drenched himself in some synthetic scent. And then he went out that same time and did an act of violence. He killed someone. And the teacher was saying that they knew it had to do with the effects of the scents. And when I do scent immersion, that's what I call the scent parties, the effects are profound and strong. So that's happening to you daily with those synthetic scents. And so you know that most perfumers, the perfumer, I'm calling the perfumer is the one who designed the scent, not the one who's mixing it, okay? The one designing it. Most of them will tell you that they won't sit near the scent where they're mixing it. They write it up, but they're not gonna sit by that lab, okay? Because they said it will destroy their nose and their senses. So they'll sit here, they'll written as scripts. Or somebody gives them a brief, they write a script and they give it to the lab people to go over there and do that. They don't sit in there. So think about it. If you don't sit in there, so what does that tell you? So yes, synthetic scents are not just that it smells bad, they can have very strong effects on us. It's not simply that it smells bad. At that DNA level, it can alter things.
Thank you, Damaris. And this goes in
Welcome.
actually to what we are speaking about, the gene keys, part of the DNA code. And like, you know, this is also bridging between many different things in the geometry of what we are and what we can be. So this is such a super interesting place to be, you know, in discussion about. So I think from this, we'll have more topics. You'll come back. For now, I would say if you want to put your maybe your website or your email in the chat, I'll put it as well for the inner circle for the replay, and so that people can contact you. But also, I'll see what the next step can be for us, the next topic.
And you can feel free to contact me on any questions you have. I'll be glad, because I also learn a lot from people's experiences with scents. And I'm glad to hear about Nicole smelling things that weren't there, because like I said, totally, I've had that.
Great. Yeah, and maybe we'll do a party. You know, Damaris, that's what I wanted to do when Ashley was here. I wanted to do a session where we all came together and smelled, and we didn't do that yet. So maybe that's an in-person thing in the future.
And we can do, you know, I've done it. We have done it also by Zoom. When we did it by Zoom, I mail out the small kits to the participants, and then they were numbered so everybody could follow along with their kit, what we were doing. Because obviously we wanted a group experience. We have done sessions where I had them prepare their own scents, but it's not the same synergy as we're all smelling a particular thing and seeing that group interaction. And you'll be surprised, even at a distance, how you connect with people on scent. And you'll be surprised that you and another person that you didn't think are always having the same feeling about a particular scent, about scent. And you and another person are constantly having, so you will find these groups will start forming where these set of people always having this, and this set of people always having this about the same sense, you know, and it will be opposite to the other group.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, thank you, Damaris, and thank you everyone for coming and exploring. I loved today in this topic. Thank you. See you all next week if you want to come back. Bye.
See you next week. Lovely.
Thank you.